I just moved into my first apartment, a charming but slightly run-down place in an old building on the outskirts of town. Excitement buzzed as I embraced my newfound independence, even if the apartment had quirks. One of those quirks was a small, locked kitchen door leading to the basement. The landlord told me not to worry about it, saying it was just an old storage space that was no longer used. One night, after a long day at work, I was relaxing on the couch when I heard a faint scratching sound. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the sound persisted, coming from the direction of the basement door. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just the building settling. The scratching continued over the next few days, growing louder and more insistent. My curiosity got the better of me. I decided to call the landlord and ask if he could come over to check it out. The landlord agreed, but his voice sounded uneasy on the phone. When the landlord arrived, he brought a crowbar with him. I watched as he forced the door open. The basement stairs were dark and steep, and a musty smell wafted up. The landlord shone a flashlight down the stairs, revealing nothing but dusty old boxes and cobwebs. We heard a soft whimpering sound just as we were about to close the door. My heart raced as the landlord, and I slowly descended the stairs. We followed the sound to a corner of the basement where a small, dirty dog was cowering. It looked terrified, and I couldn't understand how it had gotten there. The landlord scooped up the trembling dog and carried it upstairs. I decided to keep the dog, naming it Lucky. I wondered how long it had been trapped down there, and felt a shiver run down my spine at the thought of the poor creature alone in the dark. That night, I was awakened by the sound of footsteps from the kitchen. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. I could hear the basement door creaking open. Grabbing my phone, I dialed 911, whispering my address to the operator. As I waited for the police to arrive, I peeked out of my bedroom door. I saw the silhouette of a man standing in my kitchen, his face obscured by the darkness. He turned and looked directly at me, his eyes glinting in the dim light. The police arrived quickly, and the man fled, disappearing into the night. They searched the basement and discovered a hidden passage leading to the building's old sewer system. It turned out that the man had been living down there, sneaking into my apartment when I wasn't home. I moved out the next day, leaving the apartment and its horrifying secret behind. I kept Lucky with me, grateful for the dog's presence and the warning it had given me. The experience left me shaken, but I was thankful to have escaped unharmed. Months passed, but the memory of that night never left me. Lucky and I had moved into a new apartment in a safer neighborhood, but I often found myself double-checking locks and peering into dark corners. Despite the lingering fear, life began to return to normal. I made new friends, settled into my job, and regained my independence. One evening, as I walked Lucky around our new neighborhood, I spoke with an elderly neighbor named Mrs. Thompson. She was a sweet woman with a keen interest in local history. When I mentioned my previous apartment, her eyes widened with recognition. "That old building has quite a history," she said, her voice tinged with curiosity and concern. "It's been around for over a century. Used to be part of an underground network during Prohibition. Lots of hidden passages and secret rooms." Her words sent a chill down my spine. I had never considered the history of the building, only its present condition. Mrs. Thompson's stories fueled my imagination, and I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets that place held. That night, I found myself unable to sleep. My mind drifted back to the hidden passage and the man who had invaded my space. I decided to do some research on the building's history. The more I uncovered, the more unsettling it became. There were stories of disappearances, unsolved crimes, and whispers of strange occurrences dating back decades. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something far more sinister than a simple intruder. My thoughts turned to the dog, Lucky. How had it ended up in that basement? Had it been a victim too, or perhaps a silent guardian watching over the secrets of the past? As I delved deeper into the history, I stumbled upon an old newspaper article about a missing girl from the 1920s. She had vanished without a trace, last seen near the building where I had lived. My heart pounded as I read about her disappearance, the details eerily familiar. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, I decided to visit the local library to see if I could find more information. The librarian, a helpful woman named Karen, guided me to the archives, where I spent hours poring over old records and articles. The missing girl's name was Emily Davenport, and she had lived in the same building before it became an apartment. As I read about Emily's life, I felt a strange connection to her. She had been young and full of dreams, much like myself. The more I learned, the more I felt compelled to uncover the truth about her disappearance. I couldn't help but think that the hidden passage in the basement might hold the key. Armed with the information I had gathered, I contacted the police again. Detective Reynolds, who had handled my case before, listened patiently as I explained my findings. He agreed to reopen the investigation and arranged for a team to search the basement and the hidden passage thoroughly. I stood outside the building the day of the search, watching as the police went in. Memories of the terrifying night flooded back, and I clutched Lucky's leash tightly. Hours passed, and finally Detective Reynolds emerged, his expression grim. "We found something," he said, leading me to the basement entrance. "It appears there's more to this place than we initially thought." As we descended the stairs, I felt dread and anticipation. The police had uncovered a hidden room behind one of the walls in the passage. Inside, they found old furniture, personal belongings, and a small diary that belonged to Emily Davenport. Reading her words, I felt a deep sadness. Emily had written about a man who had been watching her, someone she feared. Her last entry described hearing footsteps in the night, much like I had. My hands trembled as I realized the man who had terrorized me might have been connected to Emily's disappearance. Detective Reynolds assured me they would continue investigating, but the discovery brought me a strange sense of closure. I had uncovered a piece of history, and in doing so, felt I had given a voice to Emily's story. Though the mystery of her fate remained unsolved, I hoped my actions would lead to answers one day. Life slowly returned to normal, but the experience changed me. I became more aware of my surroundings and more cautious. Lucky remained my steadfast companion, a reminder of the strange events that had brought us together.